I think
and emboldened. And it just shows your white privilege, I'm afraid, that you say it doesn't matter to me because it is not your lived experience. And let me tell you, people who have different lived experience to you will be very, very hurt by those feelings and upset and feel that their workplace has got more increasingly dangerous because of that sort of language becomes normalised.
Not for the first time. Not for the first time you put words in people's mouth. I said...
The reaction to Sarah Potchin's comments has been over the top, to say the least. The way she said what she did was clumsy and stupid.
Friends think that we're being discriminated like in employment markets because white men are seen as useless and whatever and just invisible. And there's one financial institution which coincidentally uses a strikingly similar image of Nigel in their advertising for an incompetent, useless, arrogant white male. I just wondered if that's something we would look into.
I think Stuart's absolutely right. Drives me mad when I see adverts full of black people, full of Asian people, full of, people that basically are anything.
What's wrong with that, Sarah? What's wrong with that?
Well, it doesn't reflect our society, and I feel that your average white person, average white family is like I agree with you, Stuart, not represented anymore in TV.
Lots of white people.
She's not exactly subtle in getting her point across. But the point she was getting at is true. It's undeniable. Black people make up around 4% of the population. But I have noticed they seem to be on almost every TV ad I see. And it always seems to be black people. You hardly ever see Chinese people or disabled people represented on TV. And the fact is, diversity just means fewer white people, especially white men. It just means anything but white. It's anti-white racism. But all these people outraged by her comments don't have a problem with that. Only the point that was pointed out. It was pointed out in this debate that we spend more time obsessing over the crude comments than we do actual real life issues. Then the mayor of West Yorkshire started going on about how people of colour feel in danger at work. And apparently he wouldn't understand because of his white privilege. It's white men who have now said they feel uncomfortable in the office because it seems they are seen as all inherently bad. And anti-white racism in advertising is one thing, but what about more broadly in society? White men are actively being discriminated against in every walk of life and barred from prominent positions because of the colour of their skin. All done in the name of diversity. White men have been banned from applying for certain positions in the army, for instance. That is literally putting our national security at risk in the name of diversity. You are excluding the largest group of potential candidates to choose from for some of the most important positions in the country. These positions should be open to all with the best chosen for the job. Excluding white people is as bad as the Taliban excluding women. It harms your own society by alienating people, especially the majority population. Yet all this is ignored to talk about Sarah Potchin's clumsy comments. We can call out the crude way in which she said what she said, by all means. But what she said speaks to a broader problem that could potentially really damage society. That's what we should be talking about. Here's the full debate.
I have friends, neighbours, colleagues who are black and brown and are now increasingly nervous of being out in public. It is outrageous. And where is Farage?
Tom, what do you make, first of all, just of the comments, but also of the reaction from the political parties?
No, I mean, the fact that she's apologised for it, we can either assume that she's playing 4D chess to try and, gin up some racists out there, or we could say that maybe she did express herself clumsily and wants to apologise for it. I can't see into her soul. I don't know what her particular views are when she's alone at night and no one else is around. But I don't think we should be jumping to conclusions just because someone took umbrage at the kind of over-representation of certain groups in advertising. It is a fact. There was an industry report in Channel 4 recently said some groups are overrepresented, some groups are underrepresented.
But presumably advertisers do it because they think it's a positive thing and will get them money.
It's about making money and selling your product.
Well, there's also a lot of trends within advertising, within the media, who have taken on this quite kind of patronising idea that you need to kind of constantly kind of over-represent certain groups to make ethnic minorities feel better, to kind of lecture people on diversity. There are these kind of trends within advertising which I think are kind of
Tracy, do you think that's what's going on here?
But just on the substance, right? I don't get up in the morning upset about this issue. Maybe it's because I, grew up in London, so therefore this is not something that strikes me in quite the same way. But if we're talking about racism in society, surely we should talk about the explosion of racism that we've seen since October the 7th. Surely we should talk about the series of racially aggravated rapes that we've seen in the West Midlands recently. I think this kind of tendency that we've got ourselves into to talk about misplaced comments, clumsy comments at the cost of the real issues doesn't make a lot of sense. And to see Wes Streeting saying that Nigel Farage, and again, I'm not a reform cheerleader here, Nigel Farage doesn't believe that the flag belongs to anyone other than white people, then why is Zia Yusuf at Reform Conference standing in front of a giant Union Jack? I get that Labour are running scared of reform and they think that reverting back to this script of just calling people racist will work for them, even though it hasn't worked over a very long time. But I think there's a certain level of desperation to be
Tracy,
I think there's a massive disconnect with what you're saying, because you're saying that we should focus on the stuff that's happening in our communities, the assaults and the violence, but you get a free pass if you're a leader and you're an elected politician, that it does not matter what you say. And it doesn't matter what's then shared and emboldened. And it just shows your white privilege, I'm afraid, that you say it doesn't matter to me because it is not your lived experience. And let me tell you, people who have different lived experience to you will be very, very hurt by those feelings and upset and feel that their workplace has got more increasingly dangerous because of that sort of language becomes normalised.
Not for the first time. Not for the first time you put words in people's mouth. I said the advertising issue didn't bother me precisely because I grew up in a quite diverse part of London. And again, all I'm saying is we've gotten into this kind of tick over recent years, which is clumsy comments from a politician will lead the news agenda for days and days and days when we've actually got serious problems of discrimination, of racism within our society. As I say, particularly with the issue of anti-Semitism, which has been ignored for far too long in this country. And yet we find ourselves having political potshots at one another over a question of comments which were made, regretted and then apologised for. I just think there's a disproportion in the amount of attention we're paying to this.
Finally, disproportionate response?
Well, I agree that anti-Semitism, Leeds has, and West Yorkshire, one of the largest communities of Jews outside of London and Manchester. So I have been in many meetings where actually listening to people who feel afraid to leave their homes, and certainly the attack in Manchester, of course, we need to talk about that. But I believe that it's also part of the whole, that if we are othering others, and today it is black and brown and tomorrow it is Jewish people, we cannot other people and expect to get away with that without being called out when you're an elected politician.
Okay.